This meeting is being recorded.
Today's conversation is about beneficiaries. Setting up the right beneficiaries is an important part of investment planning and also estate planning. And what you want to make sure is that your beneficiaries are set up correctly, but also you review beneficiaries regularly to make sure that what you have set up as beneficiaries originally is still relevant, and that's the right beneficiaries on your accounts. In today's videos, I want to talk about a few topics. First is why it is important to set up beneficiaries. And then next is what type of accounts need beneficiaries. Then a special situation where you set up your trust as your beneficiary, and the tax implications of setting up the beneficiaries. And last but not least, the type of beneficiaries that you can set up and what are the implications of that. So why do you want to set up beneficiaries? At a very simple level, you want to control who your money will go to after your death. You want to know that the money that you have saved, invested, is going to the right person for the right purpose. No less importantly, when you set up the beneficiaries, it is very beneficial from probate perspective. Basically, when you have instructions on your accounts where your money is going to go, then the government is not going to step in and take over your assets and decide for you or your family where your assets should go. So let's start with the types of accounts that you may own and how you set up beneficiaries for those accounts. The first type of accounts and the most common ones that needs beneficiaries are your retirement accounts. They are your individual retirement accounts, your IRAs, whether they are traditional rollover or Roth IRAs, and also your 401k plans. So for those accounts, you set up the beneficiaries, and after you pass, the account goes, the money goes to your beneficiaries. There are, for most people, setting your spouse as a beneficiary if you are married is the most common approach. Whether that's the right approach or not going forward, and your life changes, it changes over time. But as an initial process, setting up and spouses have special privileges and rights when you set them up as your beneficiaries. The next type of an account that needs a beneficiary is your brokerage accounts. Here, they may not be considered quote unquote beneficiaries, but those are transfer on death assignments, meaning if you have a brokerage account and you pass away, these instructions will determine who inherits the money in your brokerage account. The next type of an account that needs a beneficiary is your insurance accounts. When you set up your insurance policies, the beneficiaries are part of the contract, are part of the policy, and the beneficiaries will automatically receive the policy and the benefits upon your passing. Interestingly enough, so that the life insurance does not go through a probate process, so your descendants and your heirs will get the money very quickly. And in most cases, life insurance proceeds are also tax-free, which is a great benefit. And in general, life insurance needs to be leveraged to its fullest extent in your estate planning. Another type of an account that needs a beneficiary are your annuity contracts. And here again, the annuity contracts have the beneficiaries already set up within the contract. And depending on the type of the annuity, its complexity, and the distribution options that are available to you, those conditions will determine how, when, and how much your beneficiary will get from that contract upon your passing. So let's talk about the special case where you have a trust and you set up the trust as the beneficiary of your account. What this allows you to do is control the distribution of the assets after your passing, especially if you have minor children or children with special needs, and you want to make sure that the trustee of your trust knows how to distribute the assets. maybe it's a specified type of amount of income that needs to go to your beneficiaries over time. So for example, if they're minor children, how many years until they become adults? And at that point, you also want to decide whether they want to have full access to the funds, to the money, or do they still want or do you still want them to get the income from the trust and not the entire distribution? But if you set up your trust as the beneficiary of your investment account and you have selected a proper trustee, they will make sure that the trust assets are distributed appropriately. In order to set up the trust as your beneficiary, there is a specific paperwork that needs to go on. You need to provide to your either an advisor or the company that manages your assets the name of the trust, and who the trustee is. So, and if you probably fill out a form to either designate the trust as your beneficiary, or if you have an account and a beneficiary and now you've set up a trust, to change the beneficiary to the trust. So those are the ways that you can set up the beneficiaries. And it's important to know when a life event happens, whether there is a marriage, a divorce, marriage of a child, a birth of a child. Those are good points at which you want to review your beneficiaries and change them if those designations do not meet your goals at that time. What I want to talk about next is these two categories of beneficiaries. One is when the beneficiary on your accounts is your spouse, and the second one when you have non-spouse beneficiaries. What happens when you have your spouse as your beneficiary and you pass away? Your spouse has a couple of choices. What they can do is take your assets, your retirement account, as a rollover, in which case what happens is the money really is added to the retirement account and the plan of your spouse, and they do not need to take distributions right away. They basically can use their life expectancy and their distributions and wait until they're 73 to take the required minimum distributions. Another type of an account that you can pass on to your spouse is in the form of an inherited IRA. Here, the rules are a little different because when you inherit an IRA, you follow the life expectancy of your spouse. So you would need to start taking distributions when your spouse would have turned 73, or within a year upon your spouse's death, if he or she has already started taking distributions. If your beneficiary is a non-spouse beneficiary, there are slightly different rules. In most cases, the money needs to be distributed within 10 years of inheriting the assets. There are no required minimum distributions, and you don't need to do it regularly within the 10 years. But the bottom line is that at the end of the 10-year period, the money will need to have been distributed. And whenever IRA money gets distributed, the income is taxed as an ordinary income. Roth IRAs are a little special case because Roth IRAs contributions are after tax, and if the person who passed away had owned the IRA for 5 years or more, the distributions are tax-free, and then there is not a required minimum distribution requirement on those accounts. So when you are planning for your retirement, it's important to consider not just your current investment plan, not just your income, but also what would happen after you and what is the most optimal setup for your heirs and for your descendants. So the last but not least, I want to touch on the primary and contingent beneficiaries, as well as the type of beneficiaries and the type that you set up. So basically, primary beneficiaries are the beneficiaries to whom the money would go first. And contingent beneficiaries, if you have set up a beneficiary and they have passed away, those beneficiaries are the next in line to receive the distributions. Last thing I want to bring up is the type of beneficiaries. So you can set up the beneficiaries what is known as per capita or per service. Meaning when you set up your beneficiaries per capita, meaning by head, it just goes down one level of descendancy. For example, if you have 3 kids and you set up the per capita distribution, and if one of your kids passes away, the remaining 2 kids will receive the entire amount. So if you had set up originally for your 3 kids to receive a third of your account, and one of your kids passed away before that time, your 2 kids would inherit 50%. Alternatively, if you set up per service beneficiaries, the descendants of your children will be entitled to those assets. So if you have 3 children and one of them passes away, your grandchildren will receive the distribution, that is the 1/3 distribution in the case if you have 3 kids. One of the third of the distribution will go to your grandkids versus just being split between your 2 kids. And the bottom line is beneficiaries are extremely important part of planning, and you should not ignore those. I have sent out, I typically send out to my clients once a year a report with who are your beneficiaries right now. You have an opportunity to check those beneficiaries, make sure that they're accurate, and if not, reach back out to me and let me know how they need to be updated. And in the case where you have set up a new trust, or the beneficiaries that were set up originally are not set up as trust, we have a process by which we assign the trust as your beneficiary. Last but not least, what you want to do is have a digital copy of your trust in a secure vault. For example, for my clients, Right Capital, the planning software that I use, has a very secure vault where I recommend that my clients store their important documents to have a copy in case of emergencies. If you received this email, if you received this video, it is time for you to review your beneficiaries. Review the email that I have also sent with your beneficiaries, and let me know if anything needs to be updated. And thank you so much.